Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge in the Almighty Dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2023 The Players Championship. This is going to be my preview and bet show. We're going to go through all the information. Of course, we'll also recap that exciting Arnold Palmer finish. And I also got a giveaway for this event. But as always, thank you for stopping by. Give me only about 30 minutes. We'll get through all this information. Of course, I'll give you my betting card at the end, so you can get those bets in here on Monday before they start to creep up as money starts to hit them. All right, with that said, let's go talk a little golf. But first, I don't want to forget about the giveaway. Let me tell you real fast what I'm doing for my little community out there. And real quick, the giveaway, what am I doing? I'm giving randomly 3 winners, $100 each. All you need to do is click the like button on this video. Subscribe if you've not subscribed, because I need you to tell me in the YouTube comments below, who do you think is going to win this Players Championship? So real quick, another great tournament, another great finish. I think, especially if you got to watch the very end, a lot was transpiring as guys were moving up and down the board. And Kurt Kitayama, somebody that I was not on, we'll talk a bit more about, but of course, what did he pull off at Bay Hill? He ended up being the number one in driving accuracy, was a key thing that we were looking at, right? Fairways and reg, and then of course he was number one in greens and reg. Sand saves, putting was second, and total putts on the green, he was again tied for first. So if you put all that together, you should win a tournament. And also, I felt like a lot of the other guys, I don't want to say they gave it away, but just could not close. Lots of opportunities that were not made. And Kitayama, number 17th, right, hit a great shot, made that putt. That was the difference maker. And then on 18, he drove it into the rough, hit another amazing shot in 18. And then maybe one of his best putts that I saw was, the lag that he was putting up there that should have went in the hole. Would have been another birdie, but, like I said, it stopped, a millimeter before going in. So good for him, especially, if you watch the tournament on Saturday when he drove it out of bounds. I thought, that was going to be the end of Kitayama, but, held tough and really made a comeback. And then yesterday drove another one, I believe it was on 9 out of bounds, and took a triple. And still, again, there was a lot of times where I thought this guy was out and just kept coming back. But let's look at a little bit of information on Kurt Kitayama. Of course, you already know he has a couple wins on the DP World Tour. If you listen to the coverage, they talked quite extensively about that. I think he was the quickest to get on the DP European Tour and then actually get his first win. I think it took like 2 or 3 events, and then followed that up not too long later with another, hence then quickly got over here. And then if you want to look at, through the modeling that I was doing, why he really didn't come up too much on my radar. He was ranked 45th if I looked at the past 36 rounds. His fairways gain was probably the big thing that kind of made me a little nervous off the tee, ranked 100th in this field. Again, looking at the past, what he's pretty much done this year. Approach, everything else was kind of okay, except, what stood out was around the green, and his proximity from 200 plus would be 2 very, strongs. But overall, like I said, he didn't really come on my radar. Now, from a betting side, I'm a little mad because, of course, he was 200 to 1. And I had guys like Molinex, who, ended up pretty well, I think 6 under. And then if you look at his best finishes, he's played 50 PGA events. He's missed half of them. So 25% of the time, or 50% of the time, he's missed a cut. And then if you look at his best finishes, the one thing that I pulled from this is that on Bermuda greens, he does do well. CJ Cup was Bermuda, then Mexico Open. I believe maybe it was past Palm, but the Honda, he also, of course, is Bermuda. So, one thing that I'll think about when I think about Bermuda and Florida, of course, he lives in Vegas, plays with Morikawa quite a bit, and Xander in the home game, that he can play on Bermuda greens. If we look at a little bigger look, we just look at what he did starting the new year, this would be even more why really he didn't come, screaming. So the Sony Open, you have to be, a tactician. You have to hit a lot of fairways. It's a tight course at Wailea. And you can see he did not gain on Bermuda there, and also, struggled everywhere except maybe a little on approach and around the green. Now, when we get to the Elevate events, he missed a cut at the Farmers, but that's POA. And then at Genesis, he missed a cut at another Elevate event, and that was POA. But funny enough, at the Waste Management, he actually, across the board, gained strokes and gained 3 strokes with a putter. So again, what I pull out of this is that he has, in the past, of course, you saw, he lost to Rory, he lost to Rahm, he lost to Scheffler, in all those events, those are big names. So, somebody that we'll definitely keep an eye on, but he's now on everybody's radar. I'm sure his odds are going to reflect that going forward. I think he's, 90 to 1 or 80 to 1 to win the Players. I won't be on him for that, but hey, the guy had a great run of golf. Amazing for him. Now, some other things we'll look at, of course, the big story, and even for me, like John Rahm, right, comes out round 1. shoots 7 under. I think he birdies the first 3 holes. He eagle birdies out on 16, 17, and 18. And then all of a sudden, right, the driver, which he's had some struggles with lately, maybe the only thing which is crazy that he's been struggling with is, hitting that shot down the left side, waiting for it to fade. And when it doesn't fade, instead it actually hooks a little, or his line, he gets in trouble on the left. Now, of course, on the courses on the West Coast, he could get away with some missed shots, where here there was definitely a lot tighter, and could not get away with it. So round 2 comes out, he shoots 4 over 76, and then round 3, kind of shocking, he comes back again and shoots 76, which pretty much put him out of the tournament. And then on Sunday, I watched a little bit of his coverage in the morning, and he looked like he was trying to fight, but then kind of again started to have some issues. The putter started missing, the driver was still kind of all over. And I think what I would take away from this is a lot of these guys have played a lot of golf. Maybe that caught up with Rahm. It's going to be interesting for the players on that, if you kind of take that narrative of, hey, maybe I want to look at guys that are maybe a little fresher. It could be one idea. But anyways, I thought that was kind of a shocker. And then we want to look at stroke gain information for the top 10 guys who finished there. Now, funny enough, a lot of people, were probably, doing live betting. I actually bet Harris English pre-tournament and even in the tournament. And so my big bet, actually, who I was sweating, which probably nobody else, was Harris English. And he had a lot of opportunities. He didn't make a bogey over the weekend. And he had an eagle putt that, he ran by a few feet, but it had a chance. He had a birdie putt, I think it was on like 15, that looked like it was in the hole. I mean, that guy, honestly, for me, it looked really good. Of course, Jordan came out early, had his run, but I was expecting Jordan to kind of do what Jordan does. I mean, he made some really long putts. He chipped one in. And then once it got to those within, 10 feet, those 4, 5, 6 footers, he's just been struggling with them, and he still is struggling with them. I mean, honestly, that guy should have won the tournament hands down if he could have just made a couple of those easy par putts that turned into bogeys. You also had T. Hatton, that another good showing, past champion at API, is a bit interesting for me at the players. You got Cantlay, who kind of, was another guy that I thought. Scheffler, we expected to do Scheffler things, but just didn't make some putts. I mean, even, Rory had a good shot on 18 to make his birdie. I think it was, 10, 12 feet. And it just hung out, I think, on the left. And then Rory, stated that he would have hit a different shot on 14, the par 3, if he had known where he was at. He was expecting that he had to be aggressive. Didn't know he was actually, tied or in the lead at that time, which is kind of crazy. I mean, I don't know where all the boards are there, but that you wouldn't be kind of checking that, especially with the way the leaderboard was going up and down. And Victor Hovland, another one that, I had a bet on. And literally all I take away from him was he was on, 15 to par 5. He hit a crazy long drive, dead center of the fairway, a 9-iron in, chunked it, went in the water. And that, for me, was kind of the tournament for Victor. He just struggled, wasn't making putts. I mean, a lot of these guys, just as you saw, were just not making putts. And when Kitayama needed to make a putt, he did. And if you look at that, I mean, Harris English, funny enough, out of the field, led with gaining 7.5. And my biggest thing with Harris, why, I've been a little bit off on him, is hitting the driver. He's had some really troubles with hooking the driver, but he didn't have to hit the driver as much in this tournament, which helped him out quite a bit. Then, of course, Kitayama gained 5.5, and then your next would be Davis Riley, which is good, right? I mean, we're coming up. I'm guessing he'll play at Valspar. Had a good chance to win there. The field's going to probably be pretty weak, so I'm guessing his odds are going to be crap, but Davis Riley is somebody that I'll look at Valspar coming up here. That's about it for that. So with that said, it was a great API, another great tournament. And you know what? I've been whining that we haven't had that 200-to-1 guy, and I just wasn't on him. And I'm guessing quite a few of us were not, but I'm sure some of you maybe grabbed him on a live bet, or got him at like 10-to-1, 7-to-1. Let's shift gears. We're gonna head up, I don't know, about an hour up the Florida coast, and we are going, of course, to Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. A lot of these guys that are in the tournament, live around here, practice there. If I think off the top of my head, Knox, and you got Horschel, of course, Cam Smith, who won this event, also is a local there. But of course, we're going to the famous TPC Sawgrass Stadium course. Pete Dye. We got some things we can look at from a Pete Dye. He's been hosting this tournament forever. It is the Players Championship. At one time was the big money. I think bigger money than a lot of the majors. But now, of course, with the Elevate events, they've all, I don't want to say they're the same, but it's not as contrast from the money you could win at the Players versus regular field events. We are at a par 72, and it's playing at 7,275 yards. It went up about 20 yards, and I'll show you the hole that happened on compared to last year. They lengthened a par 5. And we are Bermuda across the board. They have some overseeding they've done with some POA trivials and stuff like that, but the base of it is Bermuda. We've got rough, going to be around 4 inches, which is going to be sticky. And also we've got greens at a Tiff Eagle Bermuda. You've got a player field the same of 144 PGA players that will be in the field, and it is T65 in ties. Your historical cut line is even to +3, depending on the weather, right? We see quite a bit of weather last year. We had a Monday finish, and it really all came down to luck of the draws of the AM PM. We'll talk more about that. But as I already mentioned, one of my favorites, Cam Smith, who won it last year, made me a lot of money last year, and the previous year. I hated to see him go for multiple reasons. I just like the guy's game. He just, was a really cool guy to root for. But of course, he's on the Live Tour, but he shot 13 under. And as I mentioned, you had Lahiri kind of come out of nowhere, to be right there. You had Paul Casey, who got the bad lie, right? It rolled, I forgot what hole that was on, but pretty early on, drove a perfect drive, went into a really severe divot, and the ball kind of came out crazy. And that kind of hurt Paul Casey. But of course, he's on the Live Tour, so we don't have to worry about him either. And then the year before that, you had Justin Thomas win at 14 under. And then, of course, 2020 was the craziness. They played the first round at the Players and then canceled because of, I want to say, more PR reasons, right? You had Disney shut down. You had a lot of things starting to shut down. The NBA shut down. So then, of course, golf being an outdoor sport, and you didn't have to let, attendees in. I think they could have finished that tournament. Hideki Matsuyama wishes they would have finished because he came out to a crazy lead at 9 under. And if I remember right, Harris English, funny enough, was 7 under. And I also had a bet on him back then and was pretty bummed when that did not happen. A year before that, you had Rory win at 16 under. Then Webb Simpson, who had a crazy Sunday at API where he's shown really no form. I mean, he made the cut and then went out. And I think he had like 10 birdies on Sunday. He also had some bogeys, but I think he shot like 6, 7 under. So that's like the best we've seen Webb Simpson play. And, he has done well here. So that's going to be kind of interesting. But he won here 18 under. Geez, that would have been, 2018, I believe, off the top of my head. You got smaller, I put average green size is 5,500, but they play small. So I'd say smaller than average. Now, I've told you guys 5,500 square feet is the average size of the greens that these guys play. But the way this course plays, it does the greens do play smaller. You have to be very accurate. You have a very small area that you have to hit a lot of these approach shots in. So you're going to hear me say this probably way too much, but it is all about approach and iron play for this tournament. You have a ton of sand here and these long, crazy sand bunkers that follow the fairways. We'll look at that. We got 88 sand bunkers. Of course, you got a ton of water. Rivals pretty much like PGA National, where we just watched the Honda. 17 holes, water comes into play. And if I forget to mention this, that, guys that hit the fade off the tee, a lot of the trouble is on the left side, a lot like what we just saw at Bay Hill at the Arnold Palmer. So guys that fade the ball typically do pretty well here. And you're going to have fast greens. Now, again, it's going to all come down to, again, weather. And which I thought was kind of interesting was after the Arnold Palmer Bay Hill, tournament finished, the skies opened up and it poured at Bay Hill. So, I don't know what it did. I mean, of course, again, this is an hour north, but maybe they have gotten some water there comparative to what's been going on in Florida. But I still expect these, to be very fast. They are very slopey greens. Also, it comes down a lot to the putter. I want to say it's a putting contest, but you'll see when we look at the stroke gain analysis that it's irons and putting is what it's all about. Of course, defense, I just kind of mentioned, of course, if the wind blows and there's water, that makes it a very difficult track. Fairways are at a premium, and it's all about the approach and par threes. A lot of the guys that have done well on the par threes here, ultimately, right, you've got the island hole, tend to fare very well. So that's another thing that we're going to look at. And then past notes, I already kind of mentioned the locals. Sam Ryder, I did not mention, who I'm interested in from a betting side, is also a local, does practice here. You want guys that consistently drive the ball with a fade, as I mentioned. If you miss it left, you're in big trouble. And then it gets into last year. 27 players made the cut if you were PM. And of course, that's when all the craziness came up. So if you had the AM guys versus the PM, So we got to watch the weather is the short of it and make sure that we pick our flights accordingly. There's a bunch of information on Sergio, but we don't have to worry about him because he's on the Live Tour, so no really need to get into that. I will note that Adam Scott has a couple of the lower rounds here and typically does very well on the par threes here. So someone that you could be interested in. And then if you look at the history here, 13 out of the last 15 winners have actually come out of the AM/PM flight wave. So, that could be a quinky dink, but it's something that we got to look at when we put together our lineups for DFS. All right, so of course, this is probably one of the most famous golf courses that we see on TV, but here's a quick overhead view. And all that I'll kind of highlight here. I mean, of course, there's the famous 17, and then here's 18. If you remember correctly, Cam Smith struggled with this hole because he just kept putting it over here. He had a trouble with the drive, right? I mean, he was terrified to go left, so he would kind of fire it over in these woods. And then right on the last 18th hole, he, punched out. It went way too far, went in the water, but then hit that amazing, 100 yards sand wedge, checked it, made the putt, and won by a stroke over Anibal Lahiri. You have to just hit fairways. They don't have to be long on this course. It's not about length. It helps if you're very accurate, but honestly, fairways, greens, and make the putts. And here's another good visual. Don't know off top. I think this might be 16, but I don't remember. But I mean, you can see again, if you're left, the sand could stop you, but if you're not, you're in the water. But lots of area, of course, that's safe on the right side. And then just another view. I mean, you can see just pristine. There's the 18th. Again, water follows the whole way. Funny enough, I would prefer the draw, it looks like, on this hole. This must be, 16 coming in. And then, of course, then you got the par. So this is kind of showing the last 3 holes. But again, lots of water, lots of trouble. Just need to be very accurate and good with the irons and good putter. That's all you need. Then I kind of call out this one. I thought it was kind of interesting. On number 13, it's a par 3. It's the most 3-putted hole since 2003 on tour, and just shows like half the players typically, have 3-putted here. 1 in every 14 attempts results in a 3-putt. So 3-putt avoidance is the key thing that I point out. All right, so we want to take a look at scorecard. The short of it is this course plays even longer, even though it's a par 72. But it is kind of a very strategic course. It's a Pete Dye design. It makes you think quite a bit. A lot of visual issues that you could have out there. Hence, like a Harbor Town. He likes to challenge you visually and test you that. But mentally, if you know the shots you need to hit, and a lot of guys, I think experience does show up on this course. From a showdown perspective, the only thing I was looking at is I actually like the guys going off the first tee. The reason that is that you get number 9 with this kind of 9, 10, 11, 12 run that gives you the ability, 2 par 5s, put right in a row. So for showdown, you're going to want to play guys off the first tee. But very typical. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, challenging holes. You got 6 birdie opportunities. Of course, 17 and 18. 18 being the toughest hole, that really long par 4 with water all along the side is so it's a great finish. It causes the ability that things can change. There's guys that could take some big numbers, especially on 17. I always think of Kevin Na that I tweeted out when it was a couple of years ago, when he ended up taking like a 12 on that hole and just lost it, and then just DQ'd right after it. And then like Binion right before him took like a 17 on that hole, some crazy number. And you know what? He finished the tournament, so good for him. But, that always kind of soured me on Kevin Na. Again, good thing is he's on the Live Tour. You don't have to worry about him. All right, so I did pull a scorecard, checked all the yardages. Everything is the same except, as I mentioned, this number 9 hole. So if we looked last year, it was at 583, and they've added about, 20 plus yards of distance. So lengthen the 9th, but, it's 20 yards. It is what it is. But anytime I see a little discrepancy, I like to call it out. All right, so to focus on the stroke gain analysis, and that's a lot what this show's about. We're going to do a lot of the stroke gain visualization of, kind of going through on historical data, who's done well. The skill set that I'm going to be using that you need here, and I mentioned it right at the bat, approach is king, number 1. And then I've kind of messed around with the whole off the tee stuff, but I'm just going with what I did at Arnold Palmer. I like it. Just give me guys that hit fairways in regulation. That's going to be the next thing. Ball striking shows up around the green. Putting's huge. Tons of sand, so you got to be able to play out of the sand. Proximity to the pin, I've actually slimmed this down just to the 125, 150. Almost 20% of the shots come from there. The next one would be the 100 to 125. I think is like 17%. But I'm like, you know what? Again, the way I look at it is I'm trying to get the model slimmed down to really focus on the key areas. There is 4 par 5s here. You do need to make your hay on these par 5s. So we're going to look at that. The par 3s, as I mentioned, You've got one that's like 225, and then you've got two that says 175 to 200. Then of course you got the par 17 that's, or I'm sorry, hole number 17 to par 3 that typically plays somewhere in the ballpark. I think if I remember right, like 130, 140, somewhere in there. It's not a long hole, but of course, you can't go long, you can't go right, you can't go left, you can't check it back. It's a very tight area that you have to land it. And then usually I had birdies here, but I'm actually more kind of focused on 3-putt avoidance. Again, emphasizing on the putting. So that is what the large model that I'm going to go with and do a lot of this stroking analysis with that I'm going to show you. Okay, so then the next thing that I always look at is, okay, I want to just kind of verify that. Also, I like to look at what the past winners did. Also look at the leaderboards. If you remember right, Lee Westwood had that run a couple years back. He had API and then the players, kind of just Iron Masters, Justin Thomas. Lee Westwood doesn't hit it far, but very accurate. Brian Harmon. DeChambeau would be the kind of the outlier there, who of course gains a ton off the tee. Gooch, great irons. Paul Casey. I mean, just ball striking masters up and down. Eddie Pepperell. Wow, that's a blast from the past. Was on the European tour. You had Johnny Vegas, who made the craziest putt I've ever actually seen on number 17. So they always show the Tiger Woods better than most. Honestly, Johnny Vegas, the putt he made, I think it was over 100 feet. It was crazy. That's the one they should show. Jim Furyk, that would have been. So, we start to look at this, right? You get this, a Lee Westwood, a Jim Furyk. I'm going to move right up to Anibal Lahiri, right? I mean, these guys, funny enough, Russell Knox last year was my long shot to win. He actually, the putters typically what holds him back, but he had a chance. Could be somebody interesting again to look at. Kevin Kisner's been playing, not that great at golf, but this is a course that Kevin Kisner can do well on. Doug Gim, right? I mean, everybody's going to probably bet Doug Gim and, and play him in DFS, and this will be the year because he's went back to back. He doesn't show up here, but I think he had a good finish the previous year, and then again, like a top 10 couple of years in a row. Adam Hadwin was actually a guy that was playing at Arnold Palmer last week and did not work out. He missed a cut. That was kind of sad. But long story short, what it tells me, again, if we look here, what's the two things? So you see Cam Smith lost a ton off the tee, but did it all with the putter and the irons. Paul Casey, again, irons and putter, didn't have to gain. Adam Hadwin, again, irons and putter. There's a lot of different ways you could get it done. But ultimately, if you give me guys that are the best iron players that can just hit fairways, I don't care, just hit the fairway and get a hot putter on these Bermuda greens. They're tricky greens. That's going to be the guys that, finish top 5. All right. So with all that said, I did, of course, as always, run models against that skill set I mentioned. And if you want to know the weighting, just check right below here. But, 25%, the heaviest weight would be on the irons. Gaining fairways at 15%, ball striking at 20, which takes off the tee and irons. Around the green, putting, that proximity 125 to 150, I weighted that heavily. And then the par 3s that are 175 to 200, there's a couple of those. Got to get on to par 5 sand saves and that 3-putt avoidance, kind of putting more back on the putting. And this is looking at the last 6 tournaments or 24 rounds of golf these guys have played. No filters whatsoever turned on. Funny enough, Scotty Scheffler, number 1, Max Homa, Finau Morikawa, who of course missed the cut at the Arnold Palmer. And I need to go look at exactly. I mean, I watched a bit of him. I feel like it was kind of a combination. I don't think his irons were as sharp as usual. Tom Kim, which everybody's been talking about, it should be a perfect fit for him. He's 35 to 1. Even though his golf, I mean, he made the cut, but really didn't do a whole lot on the weekend. I think he had an okay Sunday, but he had a really bad Saturday. John Rahm, again, is your number 1 expected to win this thing from an odds perspective. You got Terrell Hatton, who, is a perfect combination of what you're looking for here. Chris Kirk, funny enough, I just bet him at 90 to 1 and has done well here and didn't have the greatest Arnold Palmer, but, maybe he gets a little bit of break, could do very well. His skill set definitely fits here. You got Ricky Fowler, past champion. You got Jason Day, who's been playing good golf. Kind of had didn't have a bad Arnold Palmer. I kind of was looking for a little more out of him. Will Z, not the greatest, made the cut, but again, not a great Arnold Palmer. Siwoo Kim, a Pete Dye specialist, and has also won here. You can put him at 60 to 1. Victor Hovland, his game has just not been where I like Victor Hovland. I mean, it could flip on a dime, but man, where we need him is just being crazy with the irons. I mean, the putter, can come and go, but his irons have just not been firing where we're used to. You got Ricky Bobby Shelton, who, 300 to 1 could be a very interesting bet. And then Joel Damon, who, has done okay at this tournament. I have to look at his finishes, but I know off the top of my head, I mean, Joel Damon pops up where you need fairways and pretty good with the irons. It's just what can he do Again, you can see that putter not so hot. All right, so then the next thing I always look at historical data, and I wanted to look at, I did this a couple different ways. So same model, same weighting. This is now just looking purely at TPC Sawgrass. And I looked at the last 3 tournaments. Some of these guys are going to have a mix, but JT comes up number 1, Tommy Fleetwood. Corey Connors, which I think is an interesting bet. It's kind of been hovering around. I think actually it went up to 80 to 1. So I put a bet on him at that. I think it was 80, 90 to 1, right? I mean, we just saw what he did at Arnold Palmer. His game, I've always said kind of a Victor Hovland light, doesn't hit as far off the tee, but very accurate. And if he putts where he putts best, his one win, of course, is Valero, which is Bermuda. And he showed at Arnold Palmer, at Bay Hill, that, he was making putts. So I kind of like that. You got Tom Hoge. We'll talk about him from a betting side. Victor Hovland, Joel Dahmen, Bradley, Dougie Kim. Again, we talked about Kuchar, Redman, Brian Harman, EVR, which is showing us 1 million. So I'm guessing maybe he pulled out. I have not checked the field, but, from an iron perspective, the guy can go super hot. It's just, can he keep it out of the water? There's Chris Kirk, which I said, I think he was up to 90 to 1 last I looked. Hideki, I told you, back 2020, came out was like 9 under. So I don't know if we're still getting those odds, but 80 to 1 would be not a bad call there. And then my buddy Russ Henley, we'll talk about him from a betting perspective. But if you're looking for a guy who typically is great with the irons, but has kind of fallen off a bit as of late. But you can see in the past, he was 20th out of this field there. And then, of course, if you want to take a larger sample size and look back to the past 6 tournaments played at the Players, funny enough, Chris Kirk comes up number 1. You got Keegan Connors. There's Adam Scott, as I mentioned, I think holds a couple of the 18-hole records here. Tiger Woods, which I haven't seen anything that he's going to play in this, but he is listed right now in the field with a possibility. Sure, Daniel Berger might even be in there too, but I haven't seen. On that note, I think I told you guys Daniel Berger was on Sleeves in the Gravy or whatever, and stated that he's going to be back here shortly. I don't know what that means. I don't think he actually stated a tournament, but at any moment we could be expecting to see Daniel Berger just getting over some back issues. Molinari, that's kind of interesting. I mean, that's another guy. We just saw what he did at the Arnold Palmer, past champion of Arnold Palmer. His game sets up for this course and had a nice showing there. I don't know where he ended up, but I think he was a couple 3 or 4 under after all said and done. Hideki, Victor Hovland, Fleetwood, Dahmen, Siwoo Kim, JT, Doug Gim, Matty Kuchar. Played some good golf. I'm trying to remember, was it Genesis? He showed up, and then funny enough, I think it was Pebble Beach where, and I could have these wrong, but Pebble Beach where you think he would do well, did not play well. So figure that one out. And then you got Rory down here, which funny enough is showing actually was above Rahm. So I haven't looked at the, where it was at, but when I looked last, Rahm was above Rory, but maybe that's flipped. All right. And then if you want to look at the past 5 tournaments here, specifically on total strokes gained, this will be off the tee, approach, around the green, putting. Who's number 1? Funny enough, Keegan Bradley pops up there, and you can see he's had a good showing last year with a 5th, a 16th, a 7th. Then next one, funny enough, Fleetwood. This is a tournament, right? If you've watched this for a while, that some big name guys can miss the cut, and some guys without. I mean, you can see with like the missed cuts versus the great finishes. A guy can win here last year, literally come out and miss the cut next. I mean, it's just got that kind of volatility, a lot like what we see at the Honda. The problem is we don't see these kind of fields playing at the Honda or the PGA National. I mentioned Adam Scott, who loves these par 3s typically. JT, Webb Simpson, again, showed some form at the Arnold Palmer. I mean, it's really the first form that I've seen out of Webb in a while. What do you do with that? I don't think I'd bet it. I don't know. Maybe a DFS play for me. Siwoo Kim, Jason Day in good form. You got Connors. Alex Noren, when I think of a guy that hits the fade and is usually very accurate, but not the longest, but pretty accurate, and also a good putter. Maybe the irons is not the greatest, but Alex Noren comes to mind. You could be an interesting bet. John Rahm. Dougie Gim, there's my Danny Berger we were just talking about. Love to see him actually in the field. Like I said, Fantasy National has him listed with a hope that he's going to be in the field. Joe Dahmen, Rory, JT, again, Tiger. Again, I've seen nothing that he's confirmed that he's going to play in this. Everything I've heard is he's not playing until the Masters. And then Tom Hoge, who also I'm interested in from a betting perspective. All right, so I've talked so much about the irons. This is showing you over the last 6 tournaments, 24 rounds, who's had the best iron game in that period of time. And that's Max Homa, Finau, Hoge, Xander, who had a good showing at the Arnold Palmer. He was kind of rough on the West Coast swing, but has showed up a little better now that we're here over in the Florida swing. You got John Rahm, Ricky Fowler, Scheffler, Rory, Wyndham Clark's been playing good golf. Morikawa, Benny Martin out of nowhere. Russell Knox, Sam Ryder, Nick Hardy, and Tom Kim. That has been over the last 6 tournaments, 24 rounds of golf. Some of the best guys with just on approach. And then the second thing that I wanted to look at when we talked about the iron game was guys that have been hitting that 125 to 150, who's done the best. And again, this is over the last 6 tournaments, 24 rounds. 20% of the shots at the players at TPC Sawgrass come in from that number. And as mentioned, Keegan Bradley, who's had a great record here, it hasn't won, but it had a lot of good finishes. You got Chris Kirk Molinari showing up again, Tom Kim. You got Russ Henley, Homa, Finau, Knox, Noren, Shelton, Hovland, Morikawa, Scheffler, Young, Ben Griffin. This top 15 guys with the irons from 125 to 150, I really like that list. Would be a list that I would be comfortable of playing quite a bit of DFS players out of. So again, all about the irons, something to think about. And then I always do this whenever we play a Pete Dye course. There is some things to Pete Dye courses that guys, like a Siwoo Kim, who's the Amex, and Harbor Town, where they play RBC, and of course the players. Like, there's guys that just handle his courses maybe better than others. So if you're curious, funny enough, Corey Connors, so I'm interested from a betting perspective. Again, this is against my model on Pete Dye courses. I named quite a few of them for you there. You got Berger, who, again, don't know if he's actually playing, but Victor Hovland, Webb Simpson, Henley, Kirk, Gim, Bradley, Sungjae M, Tiger Woods, Morikawa, Streelman. Kind of interesting. 600 to 1, I believe that's what that's telling me. Wow. JT, Harris Endicott, another 600 to 1, and then Siwoo Kim. Again, Harrison Endicott's only played 2 rounds on a Pete Dye course, so I'd scratch that out. But the rest of them gives you a bit of history of past 6 tournaments on Pete Dye courses against my model, who's done some of the best. All right, then the next thing we always want to look at is putting, right? I mentioned that putting is going to be very crucial. And if you want to look at who's been best on just Bermuda greens, this would fall under quite a few of the courses in Florida. Even, like I said, Harbor Town. You got the Waste Management. Funny enough, Matt McNeely comes up number 1, which that kind of shocked me. I think of him always best on POA, but he has gained the most strokes with the putter. You can see the problem is, or Maverick, is it's been a struggle everywhere else. But he is, I've been kind of waiting for this. I've been watching his game. This was more back kind of fall going into the year, that he was gaining like 9-10 strokes with the putter like over and over. And that is just not sustainable. And funny enough, Taylor Montgomery was doing like the same thing. So finally, Mav has missed some cuts recently. And if you're looking purely just from a putting perspective, he's been one of the best. You got Rahm, you got Lucas Herbert, who sometimes hits the ball a long way, but can struggle to keep it in the fairway, but does show up. And I believe he made the cut there. Arnold Palmer, Sammy Burns, man, it's been a rough go. I watched Burns, a bit of him on the first 2 days of coverage. Of course, he missed the cut. Showed up here last year, though, at the Players at one time. I believe he was 8 under going into the final round. I don't know where he finished. I don't remember off the top of my head. But long story short, our buddy Sammy Burns it's been a rough go. The driver, the irons, and everything has just not been firing. Of course, Ty Montgomery, I mentioned Sam Ryder, local, Thomas Detry. You got Andrew Putnam, Wise, Kirk, Hatton, Noren, Griffin, Hosler. Bo Hosler, and Doc Redman does show up a bit. Could be kind of a sneaky play. Not someone I'd bet, maybe a top 40 or something like that. But long story short, those are your guys who've been best on Bermuda. And then the next thing I asked myself, well, who's been the best putter at TPC Sawgrass? So this is looking over the last 3 tournaments at TPC Sawgrass. Who's gained the most with the putter? And crazy enough, Webb Simpson comes up number 1. Cheston Hadley, Billy Ho, local, but man, he's been struggling still with the swing. You got Denny McCarthy, Brian Harmon, Kisner, Kazire, my buddy, my Brokeback buddy. I've always had a tough time not betting, but I've quit him quite a bit for here for a while. You got Mac Hughes, kind of a rough showing at the Arnold Palmer, Ricky Bobby Shelton, Aaron Badley, Johnny Vegas, who's been playing some good golf. If we remember right, the Honda, Johnny Vegas had a crazy Sunday, a bit like Webb Simpson, and shot like, I don't know, had like 10 birdies, shot like 6-7 under. So, just someone to keep in mind. Seamus Power, I think he almost hit it dead last at the Arnold Palmer, made the cut, but man, did he have a bad Saturday, Sunday, which is kind of crazy. This course actually, I think, is a good setup for Seamus Power. I don't know. It was not good at the Arnold Palmer. Adam Hadwin, JT Poston, right, your past winner at the John Deere, which I'm trying to think of TPC Deere Run. I don't think that's a Pete Dye, but it kind of reminds me of a Pete Dye. And then my buddy Blackbeard, another guy that I, would bet at times. Could be interesting, 600 to 1 if that's still there. It is a course He won at, let me think about this now. He won at TPC Twin Cities, a 3M Open, which, of course, the field was very weak, but that is a ton of water, and you've got to kind of navigate your way around her. And then he had another win, and I'm blanking. That was a tough track, but it was a while back, and I don't think it was the Players. It might have been. It was almost like something like Wells Fargo at Quail or something like that. We'll have to look. Anyways, the next thing is comparable courses, right? So I did this two ways because the four comparables and also TPC Sawgrass. Of course, Harbor Town's a Pete Dye, TPC Southwind. You got Seaside RSM, ton of water, and then you got the Honda PGA National. Now the field, like I said, I think the Honda PGA National is one of the best comp courses, but the problem is we just never get the field there. But if you want to look and see who has done the best against those courses for the past 6 tournaments played there, from a comparable side, and of course I'm including TPC Sawgrass, Danny Berger be a perfect event for him, always is. But of course, I don't think he's going to be in the field. I've not, again, confirmed that. But Corey Connors, Morikawa, Straka, Kirk, Svensson. I like the Svensson bet at 250 to 1. Tiger Woods, Russ Henley, Lowry, JT, Keegan Bradley, Will Z, Hovland, Hoagie, and then Tom Kim. A lot of these names keep popping up again. So from a historical data perspective, these are the guys that they kind of just keep showing up over and over. Of course, Shane Lowry has done good at Harbor Town and good at PGA National, but really struggled at Arnold Palmer. But hey, maybe he does a little better this week. And then if you add in the 2 other courses that I think are also pretty good from a comparable, just again the fields, you just don't get the comparable of the actual player field, would be Valspar, where Sammy Burns right back to back, but Paul Casey won back to back before that, almost won the Players last year. And then the 3M Open, which I mentioned, TPC Twin Cities. I mean, the 2 courses that got the most water on it would be the Honda and 3M and the Players, right? And then RSM. But again, RSM doesn't have the player field. It's kind of that, man, it'd be nice if these, maybe with the elevated events, of course, we'll start to get a little more of this, but to really be able to flush out who does well and these kind of hit the fairways, got to keep it out of the water, and do well with the putting and the irons. So anyways, if you want to, it doesn't change a whole lot, but you got Berger, Connors, Woods, Lowry, those guys kind of move up when you bring in Valspar, 3M, JT, Henley, Hovland, Bradley. I'm shocked Burns does not even get on the list here with his 2 wins at Innisbrook, but against this model, he did not. But of course, I'm pulling up, this is a little bigger sample size. I'm pulling up the past 9 tournaments or 36 rounds against these comparable courses, but Spence is there. Straka, funny enough, shows up a bit. He showed up last year at the Players, was kind of sneaky. Will Z and the Hideki Matsuyama. So again, good ball striker, good iron players. The putter flips for a lot of these guys. Watch out. Okay, so with all that said, I always state off the bat that this betting card is more focused trying to get the value bets. So guys that I think are going to get bet down as, Monday, Tuesday, as the other shows like Pat Mayo comes out, or even mine maybe kind of persuades a little bit of the betting. I, of course, say would lean more towards the other guys. But with that said, I try to get my bets in early on the value. Now, I'm not so much worried about, I don't know, getting a Rahm or Rory bet at, 8 to 1, 9 to 1. Like, that'll be there. If anything, it might go up some. But the guys that I, got early, like Russ Henley, 150 to 1, I think that'll go down, I think. Svensson at 250, I think he was actually even higher than that. There was one that was way, Doug Gim already went down. So Brandon Wu, I got 400 to 1 early this morning. I think Sam Ryder, I got 400 to 1. So he went down 100 points, I believe. I'm trying to remember. Tom Hoagie, I think this is going to go way down. I mean, if you want to look at this board, the ones that I'm really like the odds, I like the Tom Hoagie and I like the Corey Connors. I think it's actually 65 to 1 right now. But anyways, these are the guys. We want to see how they're ranked against my model. Of course, I got the Morikawa. That was actually 25 to 1 when I bet it. Colin has not played the greatest golf since the whole kind of meltdown at the Tournament of Champions when Rahm kind of overpowered him at the end and he just, had a rough Sunday. But, still, this is, I picked Colin Morikawa last year to win here. I think, again, he got stuck in that crappy wave. So, a lot of the big names, Scheffler, Morikawa, because typically what you'll see on round 1 is that they put the bigger name guys in the afternoon, so more coverage hits it. So, anyways, I like Morikawa. I think I don't have it on here, but of course, Tom Kim, I'm on that bandwagon too. I kind of want to see what the market. Wasn't excited to bet him at 35 to 1. Want to see if maybe it'll go up, but I don't know. It could actually go down. But anyways, this is my betting card. If you're interested to join along, you got Tom Hoagie, Morikawa, Sam Ryder. I mentioned he might have went even up since then, but I think that's a great number. I mean, we've seen what Sam Ryder's been doing. He's local. He practices here. Man, if he could do what he's been doing, that'd be great to see him win. Corey Connors, just as right, has had some good showings. Made the cut at the Arnold Palmer, had a chance to win. What was the one before? The Honda, I believe. You got Svensson, Wu, Henley, Duncan. And what you'll notice is approach. Now, funny enough, I mentioned Russ Henley, but that's not taking in his win at Mayakoba because we don't get those stats. But he went in Fuego with the irons at Mayakoba, start the new year, or right at the end of the fall season. And then he also had a really nice showing at the Sony. So, I still am very comfortable that Russ Henley can be one of the best iron players on tour at times. He was actually leading Morikawa, I believe, in 2021, 2022, something like that. So anyways, that's why typically when I see an iron course come up, whenever I can jump on some Russ Henley, I will. It's what he can do with that putter. Right? One time he was elite putting on Bermuda, but that is not the case anymore. All right, so that's my betting card. Get him in if you like some of these higher odd ones, because some of these money could flow to and get them down a little bit. All right, guys, that is my show for the preview and the bets. As always, we do me the honor. Click that like button, share it with anybody else that you know is going to be betting on the players and maybe hasn't checked me out. Follow me on Twitter. I do tweet out anything that I think is important. I don't just tweet out nonstop. And subscribe if you're not a subscriber, because don't forget, I do have that giveaway. I'm going to give a few $100 out. Nothing huge, but a little something to a few of you guys. Just tell me who you think is going to win the players in the YouTube comments below. If you already done this, I should state this. If you already did it for the Arnold, you don't have to do it again, because I have to kind of go through. If you're in once, that's all you need. If you've already commented who you think is going to win, don't feel like, hey, I need to put this in again. I will be pulling it from the Arnold Palmer and also from the players and getting that into the pool. All right, guys, all the best of us. I will have a show out probably tomorrow for the picks, and because I think Wednesday looks a little busy on my side, so maybe I'll try to get the pick show out for you guys tomorrow. All right, guys. Take care. All the best to us, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.